Do you know there's more people, if the coronavirus is what they say, there's more people recovering from it than actually dying from it. The figure is 50,000, Dr. Records, 50,000 supposed diagnoses, 2,800 deaths, the rest are all recovering. More people die from flu every winter, but yet they're making such a big deal out of it, right? No, if you think about
it's a new virus, probably. Well, they say it's not an old virus.
It's not. Coronavirus, you know what coronavirus symptom is? The common cold.
Yeah.
And yet we've got people, if they're newsers and are not.
Well, I think I've had it this week.
Do you mind if I put you live?
So the point is that I think if you're going to be aware of what the system is
Sorry
doing,
about the shaking.
Yeah.
then you've got to be aware of what nature's doing.
Sure, you need to be connected to nature in some way. You need to be closer to
But
nature.
astrology is what's
So
happening in your
astrology
sky
yes.
is a part of nature.
And I agree that there's a power in astrology. I wanted to ask you a question. You mentioned about these alignments, certain things are going to happen this year that haven't happened for a period of time. Right?
Yeah.
What has happened in the past? Have you linked it to historical events in the past when this alignment to say Aquarius and Virgo are coming together? Did Aquarius and Virgo come together in 76 on the 21st of
Well, it's
February?
not. Okay, just before you carry on,
yeah.
Aquarius and Virgo don't.
No, that was just an example.
It's more the luminaries.
That was just,
yeah.
I was
yeah.
just using
Yeah.
an example.
Yeah.
I was just making that
I
up.
haven't, Clint.
So don't you think that would be fascinating and interesting if you linked the alignment now, what you told me, I remember you can't recall what you told me,
Yes.
but I remember alignment you told me, right?
Yeah.
And this hasn't happened for a number of years.
Yeah.
So I assume this has happened previously
Yes.
in history.
Yes.
So don't you think it'd be fascinating to look at historical accounts, what
Okay.
happened?
So
And
there are
that
so
might-
many. There are so many people who are. That's why I take guidance from people who are. Because you know how we can spend a lot of energy doing things, but they're already. If you just go onto YouTube, in fact, we can give you plenty of people who are looking very very in depth at what's happening, and they can even predict. Because that's the wonderful thing with astrology. You can look at
That's fascinating if they can predict.
Yeah, well, because you can see a pattern in nature, can't you?
Yeah, of course.
We know,
Absolutely.
like we know that
Yeah.
after spring comes summer, comes autumn, comes winter.
But
the same happens in
sure,
nature.
but look how society's changed alone. Look at technology that we have here. It'd be amazing the predictions that they'll make for
But
the
how's this?
I would love to know what they're saying and what the words. I'd love to see it. I'd love to read those predictions.
What
Because I think that would be fascinating.
Well, I can give you some videos that you'll be able to see, and there's a whole flavour of them. But if you get down to the nitty gritty, funny enough, technology. That when technology, the sort of upswing of technology came to be, it's connected to an astrological event,
Right.
and people can plot that. So those things like the stuff that you're seeing, the financial viruses, you know, all illnesses, certain illnesses, plagues, or whatever, they can plot them to certain astrological conjunctions, stelliums, alignments. I say this all the time. I'm not a professional, or I don't know how these things exactly work, but I know that the people are so learned in it that I go to them. I go to them to look at their research. So Dave can pass on some videos that we've been given, which are awesome. I think what I would say is that at all times you've got to use your discernment, both when it comes to the system and when it comes to people's videos, because obviously people have got their own angle, although astrology doesn't lie, it is what it is, and you see what it is. And so it's sometimes people's interpretation of that. But if you look at a few videos of different astrologers, they're all saying things. Well, there's certainly
then you know there must be some truth in it.
There's a stream of the same things happening in all these. We started this conversation because I felt like, moving forward a bit, like, because I'm talking to the camera now, I felt like it's my duty to inform my loved ones and
Yeah,
friends
that's where you started off. And you said,
of the things that are happening in astrology and in the mainstream system, or the 3D as we like to call it, that are connected to astrology, but that I feel like it's my duty to start to talk to people about it. Whether they want to take it on or not, it's up. It's something that I know. It's information I have, and I can't not tell people, especially the people I care about. Although I care about more just my family and friends.
so you basing this on what your interest in astrology? That's your interest has been piqued in astrology, and you're saying there's certain events, certain alignments that are going to happen this year, and they are going to lead. What is the outcome? What's going to happen? How's it going to manifest itself? How will I feel it if I'm in the system, or not? Or will you feel it if you're closer to nature and you're outside of the system?
Well, when you say feel it, you're not going to have some sort of. I think this is where connecting to yourself, because on this journey that I've been on, something that's happened to me over the last, let's say, 3 to 5 years is more and more I've become conscious of that feeling, right?
Yeah.
And that's because I've detached myself from what the system is telling me is happening. So currently the system is, everybody's talking about coronavirus and everybody's talking about this financial thing that happened on Friday or whatever. I can be focusing on that and think that that's true, but I know that what I'm feeling is true.
Sure. Yeah.
And I know that what I'm feeling is true because I've spent some time reconnecting with that. So, and I know from my own experience that the connection to what's happening astrologically is definitely connected to what I'm feeling.
Right.
So how that manifests for different people really depends on so many things, including what you were born to come here to do. But if you're staring at the screen or you're staring at the system and they're telling you what's happening, then I think you're missing out.
You're void of the other stuff.
And you know how like the moons, people know that the full moon creates people to be a bit lunatics, right? So we know that the moon is like, it has a force. Now, mainstream, we came from the idea that it was a gravity that was affecting us. But what if it's all electromagnetic? Do you want some more tea?
I'm right, thanks.
Well, what if it's all electromagnetic, and the sun and the moon are both electromagnetic bodies that are affecting us in certain ways? That's why the sun can make you feel good, and perhaps the moon can make you feel good, but can also make you people a little bit crazy. So if the other lights in the sky are also electromagnetic vortices, then perhaps when they align, they bring about certain tension, or they bring about certain opportunity, like opening of channels of. But if you're all tied up in the system, then you're going to misunderstand that, misread it. It's all right. It's all right. He's just doing his thing. He wants to explain how to play the balloon. He wants you to throw it up high.
I am.
Up high. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I mean I agree with that.
Look at her very high. Look at her as high as you
Have a
can.
certain effect on people, and he said, "I know."
Wow, that was really high.
More women having their periods.
Is that your
on the
moon
full
fleet?
moon.
It's your moon fleet cycle. Well, you have the new moon. It depends on where a woman is in terms
You're going
of
to wobbly.
if a woman has their period on a new moon, it's different to when they have it on full moon. It really shows how fertile they are.
Okay.
So you can have it either or, and it actually predicts what your cycles do.
So if you want to conceive, you should do it. When is a woman most fertile? Is it a few days after a period?
No.
Or is it before? How does it work? In terms of the moon also.
Well, again, there's a
because-
It's a 28-day cycle, and at the center of the cycle, she's like 3 days, 2 days either side of the center of the cycle.
2 days. Okay, so
That
it's nothing
should
to do. So you're not necessarily more fertile around the moon phases, new moon or full moon.
Well, no,
Your body
yeah,
can
you
be-
are, because
if you're
actually,
in alignment.
if you're a new moon is 14, then yes, that's roughly where you would be ovulating or fertile.
right,
And then 28 would be when you have your, now obviously women are, that isn't precise necessarily, but there certainly is, but of course, when you're on contraception, then that's not.
So if your body's in alignment with the moon, the full moon should be like the time when you conceive, when you would conceive.
You put me on the spot, and I can't remember which way around it
It
is.
would surely be that because the new moon is like the
Yes.
like the cleansing, it's like they're getting rid of the old moon.
No, the full moon is. Oh, you put me on the spot. I'll have to clarify that. I know there's one or the other, and one means that you're in a fertile phase, and the other one means that you're in
Ovulation.
Well, no, that depending on when you have it, it means that you're in a non fertile phase of your life or your cycle, and you're not going to produce babies. So I'll clarify that because it's one of the others. There's a name for it.
Can I just say something to because I'm doing this as a live chat, and this is my friend Clint. He is an ex-army pal. I'll talk more about him. He kindly brought Luke, our oldest son.
Hi.
Hi. Our oldest son, he's on a reading meet from university. So Clint does not think, Clint thinks we still live on a spinning globe. So despite having years and years and years of conversations with him, he does listen to this channel occasionally.
Not occasionally, I watch every video, but we can still be friends.
Well, it's a rare thing actually that I have a friend who I've still got from pre-Flat Earth.
Well, I think actually he's a closet Flat Earth.
Yeah.
I think that actually he has some sort of inklings towards Flat Earth, but he hasn't yet popped his cherry.
He's had flat ideation.
Yeah. Which is
He
why
flirts with it at night.
It's a weird conversation.
Oh, my darling. He strokes his ball.
Oh.
What if you're really flat?
Okay.
But Clint is
where
like,
conversations sometimes go.
Clint was in the army. He was also in the war, same as me, but he was in the tank corps logistics, and he was a logistics guy there, and he saw quite a lot of action himself.
And
but
Clint's not a government spy.
Even though he was in the
Not a
military,
secret agent.
and he still marches with the veterans that I used to march with, but now doesn't march with them. I don't march with them.
I
I'm
still
not
salute to
really.
the Queen. What does
And
that
he
make
still
you?
salutes at the Queen on Remembrance Sunday, which is something I did once or twice. But that's and yeah, now he's also a friend and my logistics guy now because he has been an absolute diamond sorting me out with some fuel.
Some things don't change.
Eh?
Yeah.
And he's actually just brought me up a tank full of fuel.
I have.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to be refueled. We're going to be refueled because the
Yeah, he's
we're willing to empty
one of the
again.
many people, including you guys, that
Yeah.
has supported us.
Yeah, we've had a lot of support from people on the channel, so thanks for that. So anyway, this is Clint, and he's got some great questions as usual, and
Yeah, we were
he
just
doesn't roll over on things, so
no,
we have to have a lot of discussion.
but we were
We've had
just
many.
we were just talking about the astrological events this year, and I was just making the point that it's about being connected to nature, that you can start to use your discernment about what the system is telling us is happening, because there's a narrative happening in the system, although a lot of the things that are happening are going to happen in the system tie into astrology, but it's how they play them out, how they exactly
Yeah.
how they package it. Is it truthful? And we know that the media, for instance, isn't truthful. They tell
have
you
their own agenda too.
exactly. Or perhaps they have a puppeteer, and they're just simply playing out what they're guided to play out.
Yes, who runs the BBC? A Director General.
anyway, so I was wanting to talk to our dear friend Clint and tell him what I knew. I had told him about the conjunction in January, which was, it's kind of a start, although obviously this goes back to 2019 to 2018 and you know, and 100 years from now, so it's all part of a cycle.
Yeah.
But yes, 2020 is a particularly
Significant.
year.
Well, significant the year too, 2020, isn't it?
Exactly.
You know,
Well,
there must
2020
be
vision.
some significance there,
2020
surely.
vision comes up.
Yeah.
Very few coincidences.
Before we went live, David, I took him into this conversation by reminding him about in 2016, David taken us into the garage and said,
14th of February it was.
14th of February 2016.
Valentine's Day.
The three of us went into the garage and he warned us. He said, guys, we're going to have to be prepared. And obviously, we kind of
What do you want to show me?
looked at him,
I'll show you now.
sort of knowing that Dave was nuts, but he had been at that point looking at a lot of conspiracy theories. Anyway, nothing happened initially, but we now think that perhaps this preparation that he's talking about is possibly what's going to be coming in the months ahead. I mean,
You think it's manifesting itself now as opposed to then?
I think what?
You think it's manifesting itself now as opposed to then?
Well, I think I described it like this on Jeranism, that it's like the winter giving way to the spring. And as day by day the winter recedes and the spring approaches, then you start to see little shoots begin to form. Early shoots, you know, the very early ones will start to flower within a few, you know, in the early part of spring or the late winter. And I think this is what you're seeing. And then as the spring approaches, then all of a sudden you get this burst, this flurry of growth, of colour, of life. And
but
that's
you
what
also
I
have
think
winter
might
rot
happen.
that you've got to kind of clear away. Don't you? There's some winter dead wood that needs to be cleared away.
Yeah. And so I think possibly this is what the system knows, that there are these things going on. People are going to feel a certain way. Now, where either it's being exploited for that, so that they get us to feel worse about shit, because that certainly seems to be a big part of the agenda, is put people under pressure in all these different ways, economically, through taxes, through other pressures on what their restrictions on movement and things like that. Put people under pressure, or encourage people to go in deep, and as Andrew said, to burn away the dead wood, you know, burn away the kind of winter wood, and make preparations for the spring to come. But where you're going to put your spring flowers are going to be either in the system's pot or in your own garden, you know. And I think this is where we've been seduced into giving all of our energy into the system's pot. However it's being used, good, bad, or otherwise, we're putting our energy in there rather than our energy into our own plot, our own future, our own trees, loving them, that they become, you know, abundant, and we can become abundant without this constant need for being in a state of work, pay, work, you know, no money, work, pay.
The detachment from the materialism, because we think, and this is certainly something that Dave and I experienced over the last few months, is that what we think we need and what we actually need are two very, very different things. And don't be wrong, I'm human, so I still like the trappings of materialism. And so I'm not saying it's not about being purist at all, but at the same time, there may very well, in the coming months and years, be some times when the opportunity to either have those things or not have those things could make the difference, and it's how you perceive it. So if you perceive it as I'm on the land and I'm grateful for what I have, and you know, and from obviously an intentional loving heart, you can't, you know, I suppose you can fake it to a certain degree, but generally it has to be a genuine feeling. Or you can feel like you need someone to save you, i.e. the system, because you don't have the material things that you need to survive, as you perceive surviving. I mean, if you think about the things that we feel like, and again, I'm human, so I feel these things too, is like connectivity. You know, now, if you tell someone they can't have their phone, we feel like we've lost a limb. You know, even at home, and that's something that Dave and I, don't get me wrong, I think we all should have roots and grounding and whatever, but these are things that we've grown accustomed to, and those things are perhaps going to shift for a little while going forward. Dave and I don't know what that means yet. Like I said, the people who will predict these things, people are predicting them, just say, start to think about, you know, alternatives to going to Tesco's and having to buy a box of cereal. And also connect to nature, because that's where you're going to find the truth, really, because the truth is in nature. The truth that nature doesn't lie.
You find your peace.
Anyway, that was the basis of the conversation, was to say that, you know, that we think that this year has some interesting shifts, and like Clint said, there's, you know, there already is some interesting shifts, but it depends on how it gets perceived, I think. But
tell us about you're going to say about the coronavirus or something.
Well, this whole coronavirus, I mean, I've watched so much about it. I mean, whether it's information or disinformation, who knows, but apparently in the back of a Dettol bottle, was it Dettol?
Yeah.
It says coronavirus. Now, was that, what do they call it when they fake a picture?
Yeah, Photoshop.
Or whatever.
Or was that real? No, there's lots of pictures of old cleaning products that to have kills coronavirus and stuff.
And what about this Dean Knut's book, or Dean Knut's? Have you seen it?
No. Kunz.
Yeah, Dean Knut's, whatever. He used to be Knut's.
doesn't matter.
And he used to use Dean Knut's, and he took out the R for some reason. Anyway, he's a brilliant author. Knut's. Yeah. Anyway, he spoke about in his book about there's going to be a virus in 2020.
Oh, really?
You've not seen it? I'm surprised. I've got it here on WhatsApp. I'll show you.
Well, I mean, just
oh, you mean like someone's put it out as a meme?
No, it was. But it was. It's actually a picture from his book, apparently, from a novel that he wrote in 1982.
That's typically called predictive programming. So sometimes these things are laid into stories and storylines years in advance by people who
which is why often in The Simpsons you'll see things actually that happened, you know, it was like 10 years ago, and now that, like Trump, remember the coronavirus was on one of the, I don't know if it was The Simpsons, wasn't it, where there was a box with Chinese writing on it, and it was a virus, and then Homer opens it and he gets infected with it. So the bottom line is the coronavirus, I mean, some say it's been tampered with, it's been taken to a lab and they've tampered with it. Well, I mean, we don't know, but the reality is that most people are not dying from it. Most people are coming through it fine, and depending on your age, that was another thing about those statistics that I talked about earlier, is that most people that are getting ill are over a certain age. Not all, but there's already no, if you think about flu and pneumonia every winter, I mean, essentially my father passed away 2 years from pneumonia. He got a flu virus in the January. His system was really low because of cancer and chemo. And he didn't recover from it. Now, that's going to happen with people who are going to get the coronavirus. Does that mean that we have to quarantine all the countries and we have to close borders? Well, that's what they're doing, essentially. Why? You have to ask why.
And none of this...
Is it just panic?
But how, first of all, you've got to create a panic in people's minds, because no one is walking around your town falling over with coronavirus, right? You know, you don't have mobs of people walking down the street all falling apart. That's not happening. Everything's on TV. So the panic that people are feeling is being engendered through the TV. And some of the footage, not that I've watched much of it at all, almost, but some of it, I believe, is like people falling over in the streets, dying.
It is,
Millions are being, blocked up in China. Well, they could say anything. And they could give us a video of anything. And we're meant to say, oh, well, that's the basis upon which my reality is now going to change. And unfortunately, people are more and more inclined to, oh, yeah. And they share this down the social network, going, look, these people have got this virus, and check out this news article. People who would never have watched the news are getting it thrust down their Facebook and their Twitter feed and stuff like that. So they end up seeing this and go, shit, yeah, maybe there's a real risk to my health. Even people I know that have been truthers, so-called truth seekers for 10 years or whatever, they're buying into this crap and going, yeah, there's a real problem. Well, on the TV.
On the TV it is,
but actually, I think astrologically, it might very well be part of what's going on in the sky. Not necessarily the coronavirus, but as a consequence. And then it's packaged up in the way that the system chooses. And actually, I was thinking about it while you were talking about it. Imagine on the news every winter they told you about everybody who was diagnosed with flu.
Exactly, yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah.
They don't. They just don't, because most people will get the flu, and yes, they'll be ill.
In essence, it's another virus, isn't it?
And actually,
it's just another virus.
Exactly. And actually, what it should do, it should say to us, well, I want to be the strongest body I can be, so that if I do get ill by whatever virus, that I'm strong enough to
Have a fighting chance
exactly.
of recovery.
Yes, exactly. Or my illness is minimized because I'm strong.
Yeah.
And I read towards the beginning of all of this that actually simply a high dose of vitamin C and D. Now, I don't know if this is correct, but a high vitamin A and D, not A, C, so C and D. If you take that, if you get ill, then actually that will support your immune system whilst you're ill. But that would go for any common cold or illness that you get. So yes, Dave and I think that it's definitely being manipulated. But I think it is definitely something that's playing up above that is causing these things. And it's almost like the domino effect. Because you've seen it already, haven't you? So coronavirus, tick, quarantine, tick, closed borders, tick, financial implications, tick, and so it goes. And over the year, you're going to see more and more of these things, and the one drop will lead to the next one. But that's how, and then you'll see. He's looking at the balloons versus cat.
He still loves that.
That's playing with balloons.
He's been watching that for weeks now.
Oh, he does Anyway,
He's not worried about corona at all.
No,
and I'll tell you what, I'm not sure whether coronavirus is like the big one, or whether this is still preparing people for this idea that government needs to be empowered to do a whole lot of draconian things. Funny enough, I said the same thing on the show last night, but actually I saw it in the newspaper today that they're having to rush through, UK government are having to rush through new laws in order to protect the people from coronavirus. So this is, again, it's empowering, outside of any democratic process, it is empowering the government to take much more control over the movement.
But we're giving them the power, because we're saying, oh, we're scared, please help. A bit like the doctor, we're scared, help us, please help us. Okay, sure, we're now going to put in new laws to help you. And those laws don't go away once the coronavirus is gone, they stay. So you think about 9/11, the consequences of 9/11 in terms of our movement, in terms of our view of the world, they have had long-lasting effects. So, and the same will be with this, but it takes us to say, please help us, because we're scared. We have to empower the
Can I check that from what you're saying, you no longer fully trust what you're hearing from the state broadcaster?
No, I think simply because you're my friend, and you are who you are, Andrea to a lesser degree, she comes at it from a slightly different perspective than you do. She always has. And I think it's just enlightened me, if you like. You know what I mean? So I look at things, a bit differently, and it's difficult to know where the truth sits.
You know how you do that?
That's so difficult to discern.
Yes, but it's about trusting yourself.
And it's bullshit in a way, isn't it? Sorry. I hope he.
We don't mind a little bullshit on this channel, mate.
But it's sad, isn't it? Society's come in 2020 when you can't even when you need discernment, when you can't just believe what you're told. You know?
Well, no,
You have-
because
you have to have
actually,
discernment,
but how do you
and-
have that? How do you have that? Phil? It's about going back to yourself, which
Yeah.
is nature, isn't it? Because we
Yeah.
are part of the, we are, electromagnetically, we are part of nature.
Yeah.
And so to get that discernment
Absolutely.
back, you have to start to trust yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to take, we use this word, but you have to take
Yeah.
your authority back. You have to
Yeah.
say, I'm the authority of me. I'm going to decide actually whether I'm going to buy into that or not.
Yeah.
And yes, it is difficult because we've been programmed since day dot
Yeah.
to look outside of ourselves, whether that be our parents, whether that be our teachers, whether it be uncles on the road, that sounds a bit wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a war on you.
Yeah.
This is what you have to kind of come to realize is that there is a system
Absolutely.
designed to go to
Yeah.
war with you. It wants you to love the system. Actually, we all end up going to war for it, and then we end up being slaves for it,
Yeah.
and
to it,
and totally sort of subjugated by it. But actually, it's the war is on against you, and
Yeah.
that doesn't mean. And I always would say this: it doesn't mean you got to go. Okay, I'm going to go into full combat mode against this thing that's in war against me, because you've got to realize that you're sort of caught up in a fisherman's net or in like a quicksand, and if you're not clever, then yes, the thing will pull you down anyway.
Sucks you in, yeah.
You've got to be smart in the way that
I think
you
it's
learn
not-
to kind of get yourself to breathe underwater or to tread quicksand.
I think actually it's not about going to war with the system. I think it's actually finding neutrality and love for it, because we all have that same within us. We have dark and light within us, you know, and if you can accept that about yourself, then you have to accept that about the macro, the
True,
bigger picture.
Yeah.
Dark
So
and light to each of us.
yeah, if you think about it, you know, you have
The potential to do
yeah.
dark.
Yeah, you have the potential, and but
Really
so
dark.
does the bigger picture, you know, and so does nature. You see in nature all the time where there's you know, the dark night happening, and so actually it's not about destroying the dark. It's about not letting it control you. And how do you do that? You do that by, well, Dave and I believe it's love, that vibration of love. But that's a process. You don't just go, oh, you know, we're all loving and whatever. And it's, I know with you, you're kind of that kind of person anyway. So, but at the same time, you have the programming or the dark filters that you wrangle with. So you already internally have that war going
It's
on.
a bit of
don't you?
turmoil, isn't there?
Exactly. But it's about coming to terms with that, and then I think once you do, then you can come to terms with the bigger picture. Yeah, I don't think it's about going to with your weapons and then say to the system, you know, you need to be taken out. I think actually the idea that we don't have some sort of system, certainly now, it is ridiculous. We have to have some sort of structure going on, but there has to be a better balance. And I think the cycle, the bigger astrological cycle, is taking us a little bit to that. Now, we like to think of it in our lifetime, but actually time is in nature is very different to how we perceive it.
Yes, our perception.
Yeah.
Yes, totally.
So how that works
Yeah.
in a timeline, well, we don't know. And again, you know, there are astrologers who can look and predict some of that for us.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
David's definitely passed you on some of the videos we've been.
Yeah, I'd love to watch them. I'd love to see what they say. I'd love to look at the words and how it's written. And
Well, I think you
And,
have to. If you're looking at the
yeah.
news, you have to look at the other
yeah,
side.
absolutely, of course. Yeah.
And actually, you'll maybe start to see some correlation between
Yeah,
the
sure.
two.
Yeah, I'd help you get some balance too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And discernment.
And
Because then you
discernment,
start to
yeah.
realize,
Yeah.
oh no, I can see that's meant to happen, and I'm not meant to buy into the fear of that actually.
Yeah.
I can trust that, you know, if I have the best intention, that actually it's all, you know, and then I love using, or they more than me, but the word fear porn. There's so much fear porn out there.
I know.
And you have to be able to navigate it.
Yeah, it takes a strong person, especially in today's age. the social media and technology and everything to navigate your way through everything you read and hear. You know that.
Exactly.
Takes a very
Exactly.
strong person.
Well, I think 2020 is going to
Strong
require
and well
you to use-
informed. And this is the age of information, which is why I've said all along, you know,
or
one of the best
information
things.
overload.
Yeah, one of the best things I did was turning off the TV 5 years
Well, there's
ago
always
and
people wanting to
putting all of
deceive
that
you.
nonsense,
Yeah,
you know.
there's always people wanting to deceive you.
Yeah.
I think that if you hit the nail on the head.
Not necessarily. Sorry, let me just interrupt you.
Oh,
Not
no
necessarily wanting to deceive you, but deceiving you by the deception that they've been drawn into. I always use the example of the Muslim cleric who's teaching his children and his family and his brethren the words that he believes to be true. Now, I'm not passing a judgment on that, but some people would say he's deceiving them. And others would say that of the Christian cleric, and others would say that of the scientist or whatever, you know. So, but these people are honestly doing what they believe is right. I think in the main.
Sure.
So we're all in this soup of deception, which is why, you know, even the mathematicians don't want to think that possibly we've been deceived by what there could be the measurements of the curvature of the shape of the earth. And I won't get into that right now, but the point is that people are not intentionally, scientists are not intentionally lying about satellites and things like that. They believe that they've got satellites up in space, or most of them. There's very few people involved, and even those that are involved in the balloon projects, I'll be like, well, this isn't quite the same one as the one that's up in space, you know. There's just these ones that we put up locally, and then there's the ones in space as well, you know. So no, people are in the main are given a narrative, and they just go along with it.
Maybe deception should be changed to, again, it's that light and dark thing here. Deception is just people who are encountering their own darkness and from there filtering their reality. And we all have that, so everybody, but you know, it doesn't mean that their intentions are necessarily bad. Some are, because we have a whole spectrum, don't we? And actually we're offered the whole spectrum of light and dark.
I read somewhere where you can't have a light without a dark to stick it into. I love that.
Well, the zero is like the start. It's the darkness, and once you put the one in there, the light. And if you think feminine, masculine, anyway, you know, that's why we say it kind of all stems from
women's.
It all stems from the portal of the female, if you like. You know, that could be the singularity. That could be the darkness before the Big Bang, which is maybe just describing some kind of cosmic act which brings together the zero and the one, and then life. And then the numbers spring from that. Everything comes from that. So, but you need a dark for the light to exist.
Exactly.
And it is the light that fills the darkness. I think that even in the biblical stories, that's how it's. You know, you've got the dark, and then you get the light coming.
And of course, again, you go back to the cycle. You know, nature is taking that through its cycle of events, and I mean, again, you know, there's will the dark be able to manipulate you know, us to believe it's something that it isn't? Well, we'll have to see. But discernment, absolutely, for 2020. But you said you're going to have to be strong, and I think that's probably your strength, your discernment. All those instinct qualities, you know, courageous, perseverance, determination.
Fearless and trusting in that there is this higher purpose. You see, we're so invested in this material life that we overlook the higher purpose. And I just wanted to share this experience I had the other day where I was working in the main house, in the kitchen, in the dining room. They had a group in there of philosophers from the local university, and I got to talk to this professor over her breakfast, and she was, up until a few months ago, MEP, a member of the European Parliament for the Green Party, and of course with the UK leaving, she lost her job. But this lady was not necessarily any more well informed than, say, you or I would be. She knows from being on the inside that there are decisions being made at a high level that she, as a low-level functionary, has to kind of go along with. But she isn't sitting on ticking time bombs, massive truths like, that, we're false flagging people and frightening people and the banking system and the vaccine problems and all these other things before you even get to is the earth flat. But, she's nowhere even close to these things. She's an intellectual and academic who's done well. She's wanted to stand up for the people in her area, become a parliamentarian, and then, just gone and signed the dots and filled the seat. She's not that.
Can you show me how you do
So
D?
the truth is that most people are extremely deceived. It's not like this big crowd of people who know that they're like lording it over us. I think most people in the military, most people in government are just simply those people that did really well at believing their stream of indoctrination, and they went on to be captains of industry in that stream of indoctrination.
When you perpetuate something for long enough,
people then forget what was the originating thing. Like, it's almost like you set the ball in motion, and now the avalanche has totally forgotten that the little pebble that was kicked off the hill by somebody on purpose has been the reason why you've got this, devastation of a forest or a village.
Yeah, what about D?
I'm just gonna have a little look.
Go to the other side of the camera.
Go to the other side of the camera. No, I want to.
Yeah.
What about
I want
E?
to. Do I press this button?
No, just scroll up your finger up the side of the thing.
Oh, I'm just gonna.
anyway, I came here. It's a Saturday afternoon, and we entered into a lively, interesting conversation, which is something I didn't expect, although I should expect it because we always do.
Yes.
Invariably have these intense conversations and what have you. So, but I didn't expect to go straight into it. So that's been quite that's been interesting in itself.
So I'll tell you. There's Amanda Panda, Christopher Lee,
What about H?
Wheeled Skeptic,
Hello, guys.
Skunk, Water Bay, and Tack.
What
Mark.
about,
What
about
Yeah.
I?
I didn't see your video, mate. I please resend it, and when I had a look, it wasn't on your channel, so I went ahead.
It's someone has said, look at the socks. Look at the socks. Clear sign there. I'm afraid.
Okay, well, you want to see them?
Yeah.
Well, they're different colors, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good about my personality.
And I'm holding a pine cone in my
Yeah.
hand. Hopefully that's symbolizing something significant.
What does socks symbolize? Different color socks. Multiple personalities.
is-
No.
Toady UK. Oh, where's it gone?
People would focus on my socks and instead of my ravishing good looks, but anyway.
William B. Call, Clouds Behind the Sun, Gracie Dane, sorry.
I agree.
Earth is seriously flat. Skunk Water, they said that
It
already.
is seriously flat.
Astro King, Voynich.
Is it flat or seriously?
There's a very big difference.
Oh, yeah.
Joey Russia.
Hey, Joey.
Trinity 4 is the Effie hero, says Joey Russia.
Joey's over in Hawaii.
Oh, bastard.
I just find it's going a little bit better.
Glyph,
than building a house.
Drew, morning Drew.
Awesome.
All right, Drew, my friend. Drew, you like Drew.
Is that Drew New York? Or
Drew in New York.
Yes.
I always see Drew New York or whatever.
Nice to see you all. There's 19 people in the.
He's a man also going through a lot of his own travails to change the nature of his story.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, like, shit, how much longer is this meant to go on for, because it isn't the easiest of journeys. I hate to
It's
kind
not.
of
I was
belabor
just
that.
thinking that, I've been friends with you for a long time.
You?
Maybe the viewers don't, well, they do know because we're in the war together, of
Yeah.
course. Sorry.
That's
So-
30 years ago.
So that's
It's 33 years.
32
This year.
years. 30, 33rd.
Oh my
33 years
goodness
since the
me.
war.
And so I was showing the age, hence the bugger. They've still got hair. Bugger. So,
Well, and it's a code word here, 33, of course.
but we've walked the journey,
tried,
We
yeah.
certainly have. So,
Yeah, whilst sorry, you can see my finger a little bit there, and I'm really sorry. Let me just try and move my hand a little bit. I want to just, Luke, can I just point to you for a second? I want to just show you my son playing with my other son. We obviously,
boys.
we get to see Alexander a lot in the
Baby
videos.
Trinity, big Trinity.
But that's
Yes.
Big Boy Trinity, which is Luke. He's on a reading week, and it's just nice to show him on the camera because I think sometimes it just looks like it's the three of us, and it's not. There are five of us in this
Yeah.
in this situation,
And
and
there's a sextet today.
yeah, and so yeah, it's nice to see.
I don't know.
Nice to see. He's playing with his brother.
Yeah,
Which,
I exist too, don't worry.
yeah, and there's Jessica as well.
Yeah, you go by plus two.
Anyway, it's should we call it a
Yeah.
We'll
We'll call it a stream and say thanks for stopping by.
yeah we'll chat again
I just want to
soon.
say before I go, because I you can say something else if you want to, Clint, but I was on Jeranism last night, and
There's been a bit in the chat about that.
is it? I may not have come up with the maths to explain a sort of wheel and spoke type measurement of the bend from one point to another.
Okay, is that the narrative you're going
But
with?
it's certain to me that
Okay.
8 inches per mile squared is
Alright, we'll
has
go
been
with
a deception. I think what I need to do is work on my presentation,
No, that's a
both of
D,
the what is the possibility
No,
of this
Lucky,
crazy
show you,
dimensions,
Lucky,
but
show
also what is the
no, that's a D.
what is the don't have to argue with him over it. Yeah, he'll get the inverted sometimes. But he's doing B, like a D. But what is the way of seeing how they've used our flat world to create a model in 8 inches per mile squared that
Okay, alright, we'll go with that.
has been used to trick us. And I think it's this that I need to kind of spend a little bit more time on. But I don't want to lose myself on it, but I do think it's an important factoid that we need to clarify. And one hates to be deceived. So more to come on that. Steve, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah. Well, I've made an appearance on Dave's channel.
Yay!
Yay!
This is your first time.
I think it is, yeah. He's spoken about me before.
I've spoken about it a few
on
times.
occasions. And yeah, I don't always agree with Dave or necessarily with all the people that are making comments or every one of his subscribers. But we went through something, we shared something, Dave and I. And so that will always be dear to me, as with Dave and his friendship, and with Andrea and the addition to the family. Yep. I'm in the book, by the way.
Clint's in the book.
I'm in the book. So read it, buy it.
Well done.
I am for a limited time offering those subscribers who are able to send me £33 through the PayPal. And send me your postcode, and I'll put a copy of this book in the mail to you. I'm just looking
Limited editions.
Limited editions, of course, but I'm looking to generate a little bit of income. You can buy this book on Amazon for $20.
But it won't be signed.
It won't be signed, and of course you won't be helping me out very much because I only get about 50 cents or 50 pence of every copy that is sold through the Amazon vehicle of
really
Amazon.
see.
But it's got even color pictures if that's your thing. If you want color pictures, there's us doing some practice shooting at the night range.
And look for the pictures I do when I read
One of
all
our
the
friends,
comments.
two of our friends in this picture, unfortunately don't make it through 1987.
Yeah.
There's me as a boy, 17, just into the army.
I was
And this
just
is-
thinking, he's Luke's age.
This is one of the fighting
Yes.
vehicles that I was a
Yeah.
crew commander of.
Yes.
So that would be my position there. That's Adrian Hind. He died in the battle on the Lomba. Rest in peace, my friend. And this is my book, as I said. So for if you can contribute 33 quid to the Trinity's food fund, that would be awesome. Anyway,
Can I just were you finished, Clint? Did you want to say?
Yeah, no,
So I just wanted to add one last thing. Let me just put this down again because I just wanted to add one last thing. When we were talking about astrology and nature, I'm not getting this right. What we need to remember, and maybe this will help a little bit, is that we live in an electromagnetic world. On a flat plane. I know you don't necessarily get it, but we are electromagnetic beings, and we fit perfectly to the electromagnetic world. And in fact, we not only fit perfectly, but we all become seamlessly one.
Oh!
We become seamlessly one. So whatever's happening, we're connected.
Absolutely.
And I
I've
think
always
in
maintained that,
2020,
Andrea.
what we really need is for people to realize that we are connected, and that it's going to require us remembering that, or feeling that, or reconnecting to that, so that we are there for each other, and that whatever happens to one happens to all.
Absolutely.
And actually, so why astrologically what's happening in the sky is important, is that it's happening in us too.
Yeah, I like that, Andrea. It's a great analogy, and it's a great way to end as well. If we're going to end here.
Yeah.
But anyway, nonetheless, it's Saturday afternoon, and Storm Jorge.
Oh, was that Storm Jorge?
Is there another storm coming, or that was?
No, that was Jorge. Just made a brief appearance. Blew in and blew out, sort of
Now
thing.
this is again.
Fear porn.
Well, the name is, but it's still nature, isn't it? It's just the wind. I call it the winds of change.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's been nice chatting as always.
Yeah. And so from socks, call me socks.
There's a hole in your sock, really?
Is there?
Yeah.
Hey, North.
There's a hole in your sock.
Is there seriously?
A big hole
Hey,
there.
North. Hey, you put on a channel. What kind? Hey, bugger.
Not only rough for me then, obviously.
Those working nose can't even afford.
Yeah, when we came back off the tour, actually, my sister-in-law saw my socks and said, "Oh, I better buy you some new ones." So, I've got 3 pairs of new ones. I'm good for socks at the moment. Anyway, that's been an unusual thing to do, and I just threw that at my friend Clint and said, "Hey, I'm just going to go live while you guys are chatting, because it's, maybe an interesting conversation for people to hear, and it's not always to be in an echo chamber of people who agree with everything you say." So I hope that was useful. Nice to see you, Drew, and I do hope things are going for you well, my friend. And Mark, send me what you think. I think the 8 inches. Let me just go, in here. I guess, you need to kind of, with the 8 inches thing, you need people to be willing to think afresh. Because everything about this, the ball earth model is a construct of the mind. What we see in the world is what we see. What they've done is they've constructed a possible or potential ball that could fit with what you see, because if off in the expanse, maybe there's a little bit of dipping. It seems like that from a visual perspective point of view. So it is about getting the mind to think differently, and I've really been putting my mind to this quite a bit over the last few weeks. And one, I'm sure that the 8 inches is wrong, much to my chagrin. It's not enough. As Jaron was saying, put 25,000 pontoons at 1 mile space around the globe, and everybody would report sitting on those pontoons would report that the ship was descending or ascending 1 mile, 8 inches in the 1 mile before or after. So obviously in reality that doesn't work. That actually, it all ends up being flat, not even a slope, because if something's coming up 1 mile and going down 1 mile, the next person says it's coming up 1 mile and going down 1 mile, it's actually just making this sort of 8-inch wave, up and down, up and down, and up and down. If everybody reported back and you drew on a graph, tell me number 57, tell me number 5,250, what have you seen? It's come up 8 inches and it's gone down 8 inches as it's gone away from me. That's what every one of those people would report. And again, I failed to really import how perspective has been hijacked. And that's Nathan Oakley's phrase, isn't it? The hijacking of perspective or something, or the hijacking. But it has been hijacked to say, when you see something that appears to be going down, like the ship that appears to be going away, that is because things are getting steeper as they go away from you. Well, it's that nothing that I do to observe this supposed globe is going to affect the amount that the object, if I use this, I'll turn the camera around actually. nothing that I do to this balloon or something moving over the skin of this balloon is going to alter the trajectory or the curvature, the benditure of this balloon. Nothing that I do. So I could stand here, and yes, if I was standing here, I would have a different view than if I was standing here. I accept that. But in terms of the amount that anything is going to be bending, then the viewer has no bearing on that. I think that's the first point. 8 inches, 8 inches, 1,000 inches, it doesn't matter. The point is that it's as though the viewer can shape the reality, and that's where that might be true, but in fact, in the case of trying to observe a physical globe and a physical body of water bending, then me looking at standing at 10 miles away or 1 mile away is going to make no difference to the amount that it physically bends. And therefore, a ship traveling 10 miles away from me, or a landmass that's 10 miles away from me, has to have an amount of curvature that has no bearing on anyone observing it. Once you become the observer, then you can say, well, based on the fact that it goes down 60 feet or 6,000 feet, I'm going to be able to see it this well from this height and this far from that height and so on and so forth in these conditions. So that's where I think I'm sure that the 8 inches has been misappropriated, and it's got us squabbling over the detail rather than over the actual baseline fact that this body of water is going to bend at an equal amount, unless it's got other, shaping and so on. So that doesn't. But if this was a perfect ball, I have one over here. This is a near perfect ball. This is always going to be bending by exactly the same amount. Now, the way that they've tricked us is to say put the ball in a cage. Let me rest this up against the distiller. Imagine a 3D cage. So you can see that obviously the trick is this line here becomes an artificial horizon, and everybody understands that this is what they've done, is they've gone, right, there's a very little bit of curvature, but it gets more and more and more until eventually it's almost vertically dropping down. What they don't do is they don't tilt the ship to allow for the nature of the curvature. So, there is no horizontal line on this ball, is there? But they forced one in and forced a box around it and said, right, measure the spaces that are changing as you go down. And that's not how the clock works. The clock works. That clock. The way that hand second just always catches the same amount of drift, the same amount of curve. So I'm just, I'm just looking for a way to mathematically demonstrate to people, because I think that's really what's needed. To me, you measure the curving on the skin. You don't zoom back out from that and put a box around the ball and say, now let's measure the parameters of the movement based on this box. That's where the square and compass, I think the Freemasonic square and compass has been cleverly used to create a box. But this window, I think I tried to demonstrate this last night. This window, if you look at the framing, gives you that radial experience. So this half semicircle that we've got here, you would say, yes, at the top of it, you're going to lose very little height relative to the equator here. But at the side, you're losing, at the 3 o'clock position, you're losing an awful lot quite quickly. And of course, that doesn't create a steady movement for the clock. It creates an unnatural top and unnatural bottom. which is why I've been slinging the clock onto its back and saying, look at the clock moving now. It's not gaining altitude, losing height. It's simply altering its position from a 0 point by X degrees, and those X degrees equals a certain amount of benditure. And the viewer in a world that had a curvature that I think that it should do, if it was 24,000 miles and 4,000 mile radius, it should be so obviously steep that we would be able, as I said last night, we would actually be standing on the top of a mountain almost and looking down at the world around us. Anyway, I've had a nice chat with you guys, and oh, thanks for that, Tony. Yeah. Well, I hope that we are. Some days there is doubt. Some days there's doubt, and there's this, like, am I meant to be putting myself through all of this, or am I meant to be quietly, going about trying to make a decent enough living in the system to pay for the things we need to pay for to live, and so on. And it's really tough going week to week or day to day, and being on the bread line, and just sort of kind of hoping that right bit of information, or that right bit of new direction is going to be made available. I mean, when we were losing the house at the end of last September, when we were moving out, we had given them notice for the end of September, and 2 weeks before we moved out, we still didn't know where we were going next. And then, after the UK conference, Ian had put me in touch with a Scottish family that put us up for a month doing that work up there. And then, we agreed to go on the Global tour. And after that, of course, we were like in no man's land property-wise. And as people know, we crashed here and we crashed there. And then we got a little bit of money from the Flat Earth community, which we used to pay for some accommodation in January. And then, of course, thanks to a couple of guys, Nigel, Simon, and Aid, basically between the three of them, they hatched this idea that ended up with us getting this place to stay here for a month. That's about to come to an end, and of course, when all of that uncertainty weighs upon you, thanks to Clint, I've got some petrol, and he took a couple of books from me, so I got a little bit of cash, so we were able to get some groceries today. But it does. I said to Andrea one day a few months ago, I wept and said, no one's coming. We are kind of in this on our own, and I don't expect. I don't know. Part of me hopes that the journey we're taking is one of faith, and one in which we learn the things we need to learn, and are able then to offer that back to a wider community, in time. There is times when it's like, but there's not enough of us, and it's not, it's not happening, and maybe I'm not doing the right thing, or I'm not in the right position to be doing what I'm doing. I'm sure you have I expect that most of you, if you're really wrestling with what is our divine responsibility or our divine purpose, then it's a juxtaposition of balancing paying all the bills that are coming our way these days and doing the right thing for the spiritual journey that you are meant to be on. For me, I admit there are days when I'm like, what the fuck? This is just insanity. You know? And then there's other days where I'm like, this is what I'm meant to be. Why I'm meant to be going through this hardship is because there's a time coming when a certain metal is going to be required to take the next step, whatever that step might be. So, friends, I'll end it there. I hope you're well. Really, I do. I feel it's important for me to be more mindful that you yourself are going through your own personal journey of discovery. Some may prefer not to open all of the doors. Some may take a more measured and sensible approach to how to divest from the system. Some may choose not to. Some may choose to try and cling dear to all of that at the same time as, you know. But I'm not in a position to judge any of that. I'm just observing and recognizing that these are the choices that people have. And I don't know that there's a more righteous choice to make. It just feels mostly for me that these are the right choices that I've been making. And you know, most of the time I feel protected and loved by our Creator. Most of the time I feel that. I feel increasingly, days of happiness and times of joy and relishing the days that I have and the time that I have with my family and with this life, despite despite the way of things. So, yeah, we don't know where this is going to lead us. We really don't know where this is going to lead us, but we have to, I think, do the best that we can with what we have, while we have it. Preparing the ark. Be well.